The cult of the carts. What is the cult of the carts? The cult of the carts is a term I coined to describe an occurrence in history. In the past, when any religious structure was built, the community came together in various ways. To go back a bit further with this idea, a religious structure like a cathedral was created due to the need for a community building in an area that was growing and the society was being created. A cathedral was a focus point for a community. It raised up around the local community. Thus, it was the community that made this project happen and had a lot to do with it being finished. It can be said that the bigger and more elaborate it was, that the community around it was larger. The smaller and less extravagant a cathedral was, would suggest that the community around it during its creation was smaller as well. The creation of a cathedral in an area was an extraordinary outburst of religious enthusiasm. The cult of the carts was formed due to the need and want to create a cathedral. When researching the history surrounding a cathedral, some cathedrals' histories are easier to find an occurrence of the cult of the carts than others. The larger the cathedral, the easier it would be to find remnants of a cult of the carts. Also, I have found that this phenomenon was more prevalent in the Gothic style period of the cathedral construction. In this video, I will be using Chartres Cathedral in France as a backdrop to an example of what I like to term as the cult of the carts. Occurring during the construction of this cathedral, I believe there was a cult of the carts. Building Chartres was a burden for France economically. Funds were raised in a variety of ways in order to fund the construction of the cathedral. Some ways of funding the construction of the cathedral were revenues from vast agricultural estates, taxes levied by bishops as temporal lords, and sugar set aside annually. I will sidetrack here for a moment. This might be a good time for everyone to find a handy-dandy notebook to have on hand for my videos. If you plan on watching my videos over the years, you might want to have a notebook or something similar to collect thoughts, terms, and important historical information for easy future referencing. This concept of setting aside sugar annually by the community in order to use it to raise funds for the building of Chartres and other cathedrals is one of the first instances of using the income from the selling of sugar to pay for a community project or need. This idea, concept, or thought will be important in other future conversations we have on history, especially when we delve into the history between the 15th and the 19th centuries. Now, getting back to the various ways revenue was raised for the construction of the cathedrals. Another way to raise revenue for the building of a cathedral was the canons of the cathedrals. These were the members and governing body of the cathedral. These members would set aside stipends for a predetermined amount of years to go towards the building or repair of their cathedral. These people within the community of Chartres went without their stipends for 3 years between 1194 and 1197. This raised money for repairs after a fire. Stipends was a regular sum of money paid to many religious, academic, and apprenticeship types in history from various organizations. The fabric in cathedrals, such as tapestries, clothing used for services, etc., were mostly paid for by pilgrims to the cathedral and local laymen. The wealthy, more than local kings and noblemen, gave money and donations to the construction of the cathedrals. These families liked undertakings where their family names could be attached to a project, such as within the stained glass created for cathedrals. An example of Chartres is the north transept windows that were donated by Queen Blanche, mother of the sainted crusader Louis IX. Some groups that regulated various religious or social associations within the local community donated to the building of cathedrals. Also, local guilds for various craftsmen and tradesmen donated to the building of cathedrals. One of the guilds that donated to Chartres Cathedral was the Guild of the Furries. They donated a window with scenes of the story of Charlemagne. He had been the original owner of the Virgin's tunic. This was Chartres' most prized relic. The exploits of Charlemagne and his knights are depicted in an elaborate interlocking composition. The cult of the carts was also a group of people that donated to the building of cathedrals. At Chartres, this group, I call the cult of the carts, grew to over 1,000 during the building of the cathedral. As a whole, the community surrounding Chartres grew to 10,000 during the building of the cathedral. As I was saying a bit earlier, cathedrals were the center of a community during the Middle Ages. The medieval period ran from approximately 1000 AD till approximately 1500 AD. The Gothic-styled construction began sometime in the late 1100s. This was the early medieval period. The Romanesque style began in a very early medieval period, about 900 till 1200-ish. This cathedral, Our Lady of Chartres and Our Lady of Notre Dame, are mainly styled in the Gothic style, though there are Romanesque features within them. I like to use these two cathedrals when talking about these grand cathedrals around the world because these are like twin cathedrals in some senses. They have similar features in sections. They are also great examples of the Gothic style cathedrals. There are three types of Gothic style: Gothic, High Gothic, and Flamboyant Gothic. The local cathedral in an area was a focal point of the society's lives. Everyone's life revolved around it. Markets and fairs were held in and around it. Even justice was served and presided upon at its doors. The mercantile prosperity even depended on it. The markets were under the jurisdiction of the cathedral chapter. Even the local wine businesses was conducted and sold out of the crypts. When it came to the cult of the carts at Chartres, this cult would march silently towards Chartres. Within their wagons, they held food, wine, and grain, oil, stone, wood, and anything and everything they could find and spare to help build the cathedral and support the workers. A priest would go from wagon to wagon to counsel the occupants and those pulling the wagons. It should be known that oxen or horses pulled the wagons within these cults, if there were any. Though, if there were none, the people within the cult would pull the carts themselves. If anyone traveling in a wagon or driving or pulling a wagon refused the counsel of the priest, they were thrown from the wagon and deemed impure. Then they were excluded from the local community. The priest presided over the wagon for penance and confession. All ages were included. When the cult of 1,000 or more carts reached the cathedral grounds at Chartres, they arranged themselves like a spiritual camp. Through the nights, they would celebrate with hymns and canticle. During the day, the wagons adored. Banners and trumpets would be heard. At night, the candles and lamps lit up the darkness. During the evening hours, the old and sick were housed in the wagons, while the rest would gather religious relics from the cathedral. These relics were from various saints. Most cathedrals had one saint they housed relics from, though there are some that have relics from more than one saint. These reliquaries were brought to the old and sick within the wagons owned by the cult of the carts. These relics would be presented while praying over the old and the sick and used to console them of their burdens. After all of this ceremony and celebrations, the priest would close the event for the day with a procession of the members of the cult of the carts. The procession would have the members of the cult and the cathedral, along with the relics being displayed to the people. These members followed this procession to the cathedral with devout heart. The relics were placed back into the reliquaries and set down in a dedicated area of the cathedral during the procession ceremony. Relics and reliquaries usually were housed within the apse of the cathedral. All the members prayed for clemency of the Lord and to his mother for the recovery of the sick. All cathedrals are dedicated to someone, and Chartres Cathedral is dedicated to the Virgin and Child. Notre Dame Cathedral is also dedicated to the Virgin. All cathedrals have a cult attached to it and are based on the figure that the cathedral is dedicated to. The cult of Our Lady of Chartres Cathedral was the cult of the Virgin Mary. Our Lady of Notre Dame has the same named cult as well. One major relic housed at Chartres Cathedral is the tunic the Virgin Mary wore during birth. Chartres became a model for builders throughout northern France. Its design was challenged at Bourges and both emulated and perfected in the cathedrals of Reims and Ames. Chartres was built on the foundation of the church that was nearly fully destroyed by fire on June the 10th, 1194. In a remarkable short amount of time, This cathedral rolls on this site behind the royal portal, the only well-preserved area of the older church. Chartres is a good introduction to the Gothic style, and both Notre Dame and Chartres cathedrals are great examples of the Gothic style. I hope you all enjoyed this more detailed delve into Chartres Cathedral and the concept I like to call the cult of the carts. I hope to see you all on my next video. Enjoy and talk to you all soon.